The Exodus drifted silently through the icy rings of Haven, running dark to avoid detection after their botched raid. Captain James stared out the viewport of the battered freighter, dismayed by their dire situation. Supplies were running dangerously low, with maybe a week of rations left for the ragtag crew. They were struggling to survive, paying the price for their failed heist. James turned to his trusted first officer Alex, who was completing an inventory count with a frown. "How's it looking?" asked James. "Not good," replied Alex. "We've got 36 MREs, a couple packs of protein paste, some purified water, and that's about it. We're going to starve if we don't find more food soon." James sighed, shoulders slumped in frustration. The pantry was nearly bare and the next habitable system was weeks away. Left with no choice, he opened the comm channel to engineering. "Dutch, how are the shuttles looking?" Dutch replied in his gruff baritone. "The Copernicus is spaceworthy but low on fuel. The Galileo has a busted thruster but could limp along. I can get one or both prepped for launch." "Prep the Copernicus," ordered James. "You and Alex gear up for a foraging op down on Haven 3. We're not going to last much longer without fresh supplies." "You got it, Cap," acknowledged Dutch. "I'll round up our weapons and get the shuttle loaded." The aging engineer had been with James since their academy days and was always game for a risky op. Alex gathered his flight suit and plasma rifle, checking his gear with the deftness of experience. At just 25, the young first officer was already a valuable asset to the crew. He and Dutch would watch the captains back down on the surface. The Copernicus detached from the Exodus with a hiss of maneuvering thrusters, charting a course through the asteroid field toward Haven 3. James expertly piloted the shuttle, weaving around icy planetoids. Alex scanned sensor readouts, searching for signs of activity or resources. "There," called Dutch, spotting the abandoned asteroid outpost clinging to a massive orbiting chunk of ice. It was their first promising lead. James angled toward the derelict base, landing gears extended. There was no way to know what awaited them inside, but they had to take the risk. The needs of the crew outweighed all else. The Copernicus touched down outside the structure. They suited up and entered cautiously through an airlock, plasma rifles raised. The base appeared dead, lights off, and no power readings. "Let's gather whatever useful supplies remain," ordered James. "Stay sharp and stick together." They scoured the base, grabbing medical kits, tools, and containers of water, but nowhere did they find any substantial food, to their growing dismay, until Alex detecting a faint life sign from one of the back rooms. What he found there shook him to his core. An emaciated alien corpse lay face down, clutching a crude knife in its deathly four-fingered grip. The horrible realization struck Alex. This alien had resorted to cannibalism in its final days of starvation. "Captain!" called Alex over the comms. "You need to see this." What desperation could drive someone to this? Alex thought with pity and revulsion. Yet if they didn't find food soon, would they face the same bleak fate? There had to be another way. Alex stood frozen, staring at the emaciated corpse and the knife clutched in its deathly grip. The chilling realization that this alien had resorted to cannibalism in its final desperate days shook Alex to his core. Over the comms, he heard Captain James respond, "Report, what did you find?" "It's not good," replied Alex, struggling to find the words. "There's a dead alien here. No sign of food or water, but it has a knife and it looks like it succumbed to starvation and turned to cannibalism as a last resort." A heavy silence hung over the channel as the implications set in. After a pause, James said, "Copy that. Regrettable, but we need to keep searching. There must be something of use in this forsaken place. Meet back at the shuttle." Alex took one last pitying look at the corpse before heading out. The desolate desperation of the scene haunted him as he made his way through dimly lit corridors back towards the main entrance. This was a glimpse into the abyss that awaited them if their fortunes did not change. As Alex stepped outside, an ominous buzzing sound grew in intensity. Captain James and Dutch were already there, weapons raised as a swarm of insectoid cliques descended from all directions, drawn by the activity. The chittering horde moved to surround the base in a pincer attack. "Defensive positions!" yelled the captain. The three men fanned out, taking cover behind supply crates and the shuttle. The cliques were a violent scavenger species, known to hunt weaker prey. To them, humans were no more than meat. The alien swarm unleashed a barrage of plasma, trying to burn through the base outer walls to reach their quarry. James returned fire with his rifle, dropping 2 of the insectoids in sprays of yellow ichor. More angry cliques took their place, trying to overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers. "Conserve ammo and pick your shots," James commanded. The men aimed with precision, utilizing tactical training to thin the horde. But the cliques kept coming, their chittering growing into an overwhelming din. Then the angry buzz rose to a fever pitch as the entrance doors burst open. The cliques had burned through and were flooding the interior, bent on slaughter. Dutch tossed a frag grenade into the breach, sending body parts flying in the explosion. "We're gonna need more grenades!" "Fall back to the Copernicus," ordered James. They moved in a fighting retreat, guns blazing. Alex grabbed the shuttle medkit and a final crate of supplies before climbing aboard. Click's plasma bolts sizzled past them. James jumped into the pilot's seat, powering up the engines as Alex and Dutch provided covering fire from the side hatches. The Copernicus lifted off, its hull taking some dings as James executed evasive maneuvers. But soon, they had broken free of Haven's gravity and set a course back to the Exodus. For now, they had survived, but at a heavy cost. Fuel was low, ammo depleted. The mission had been a desperate gambit and the risks were multiplying. Yet they had no choice but to keep foraging, blurring moral lines in the struggle to sustain human life. Hope was dimming, but James knew they must keep faith. The crew needed steadfast leadership to pull them through these darkest hours. The Copernicus shuttle sped away from Haven as fast as its strained engines could manage. Inside, Alex slumped back, exhausted and dismayed. The foraging mission had been another failure, producing little aside from a deadly firefight with the cliques. Captain James and Dutch looked similarly worn down in the dim cabin lighting. James broke the gloomy silence. "Let's assess our status. What did we manage to recover?" Dutch gestured to the few containers they had grabbed in desperation. Some basic medical supplies, bandages, antibiotics, pain meds, a case of tools, and maybe 10 liters of water. Hardly enough to sustain the 50 souls aboard the Exodus. Alex shook his head. "We're just prolonging the inevitable. Without food, it's only a matter of time." He trailed off, not wanting to finish the grim thought. "I know our prospects seem bleak," replied James, "but we must keep up the fight. We've beat long odds before. The crew is counting on us." Alex nodded, trying to share his confidence. James had led them through plenty of scrapes before, but something still nagged at Alex after the horror he'd witnessed planetside. "If we stay desperate like those poor souls planetside, will we resort to barbarism? Maybe we should try reaching out to others for help instead." Dutch huffed dismissively. "Ain't no one gonna help us after the jobs we pulled. We're wanted men, no friends in this system." "I'm not so sure," countered Alex. "We just need to show them we're more than raiders and thieves. Prove that humanity is defined by more than our worst impulses." James listened intently, then replied, "You may be right. Our usual methods have failed us. Perhaps it's time to change course." A moment passed as the captain weighed their options. Finally, he slapped the shuttle comms panel. This is Captain James of the Exodus hailing on open channels. We're in dire need of food and water. Our ship is full of starving families and children. If anyone can help, know that you'll have humanity's eternal gratitude." He repeated the message 2 more times into the void. No replies came, but maybe someone had heard. James then turned back to Alex and Dutch. "We'll swing by the Exodus to offload supplies and gather weapons, then set course for Harkov Station." Dutch's eyes widened in surprise. "Harkov? That scrap heap is crawling with gangs who'd soon blast us than trade." "I know it's a risk," said James, "but we're taking the Copernicus there peacefully. If we sway even a few of them to our cause, it will be worth it." Alex felt the first glimmer of hope in some time. The captain was right. Trying to survive alone was bringing out the worst in them. It was time to have faith and goodwill, push past suspicion and forge trust. Their future depended on opening hearts as well as combating adversity. The mission filled Alex with new purpose. The Copernicus shuttle docked with a clang inside the Exodus mothership. Captain James, Alex, and Dutch disembarked, fatigued but determined after their taxing mission planetside. The crew looked on hopefully as they offloaded the scant supplies recovered, meager scraps that would barely delay the inevitable. James saw the growing desperation in their eyes. His responsibility as captain was to provide solutions, or at least hope. He called Alex and Dutch to the bridge for a private meeting. As the door sealed behind them, James leaned heavily on the central console. "We cannot continue on this course," he began solemnly. "Our last job failed for a reason. We strayed from our principles. It ends now." Dutch shook his head, skeptical. "This life is all we know. Ain't no way out but through." But Alex nodded in agreement. "The captain's right. We need a fresh start. If we keep fighting and stealing, we'll just create more enemies." James clasped Alex's shoulder firmly. "My friend, you speak wisdom. I know the road ahead won't be easy, but we must have faith in our better angels." He turned to the star map highlighting a nearby station. "We will journey here, to Harkov. They are a haven for thieves and scoundrels much like we used to be. But we will come in peace, not conflict." Dutch raised a scarred eyebrow. "Those rogues will laugh us back to the black if we come begging." "Perhaps some," acknowledged James, "but others may see the good in helping a starving crew. We have to try." He stared intently at Dutch and Alex. "No more hostile raids or shedding blood needlessly. We prove to the system that humanity stands for more than violence." Alex smiled, spine stiffening with purpose. "Making peace with enemies and protecting the weak? Count me in, Captain." Dutch reluctantly nodded. "All right, James, we'll try it your way. But those Harkov scum better not try any funny business." His hand drifted to the pistol at his hip. James placed a firm grip on Dutch's shoulder. "No more talk of scum. They're just souls like us trying to survive. If we go in judging others, this mission is doomed from the start." The captain straightened with conviction. "We will show them humanity at its best, provide aid without judgment. Only through mercy will we find redemption." The 2 officers were moved by his words. James laid out preparations for the journey ahead. There was hesitance and fear of the unknown, but also a shared sense of hope kindled. Perhaps peace and goodwill seemed unlikely from a crew with such grim history. But sometimes all it took was a small spark of inspiration to light a brighter future. As the Copernicus later departed for Harkov Station, James watched the Exodus shrink into the distance. This leap of faith still felt perilous, but he trusted this moral course. By sharing humanity's generosity, they would rediscover it within themselves. And maybe, just maybe, forge the alliances needed to sustain life. Weeks later, the Exodus drifted slowly toward Harkov Station, her hull scarred from past conflicts. A nervous hush filled the ship as the notorious outpost grew larger in the viewport. Captain James stood resolutely on the bridge, Alex and Dutch flanking him. "Here we are," said James. "Let's hope our leap of faith pays off." After their desperate broadcast, Harkov's chief Hadron had grudgingly agreed to a meeting. Food and medicine would be gifted, with guarded optimism about building trust. "Remember, no matter how much they glare, don't stare back," cautioned James as the station loomed nearer. "We're here as friends." Alex nodded, though his palms were slick with sweat inside his gloves. A lifetime of viewing Harkov's inhabitants as cutthroat enemies was hard to shake, but he trusted James to lead them down a nobler path. With a hiss of maneuvering thrusters, the Exodus came to rest in Harkov's main docking bay. James, Alex, and Dutch marched down the ramp, carrying crates of food and medical supplies. They were met by Hadron and a dozen armed guards. "This is all we could spare," said James. "We pray it provides some relief." Hadron nodded, gesturing for the supplies to be taken. As his people offloaded the crates, the hardness in his stance seemed to ease just slightly. "Your gifts are appreciated, but make no mistake, we still have long memories." Past tensions hung palpably in the air, but James stood tall and resolute. "The time has come to move beyond past conflicts, to forge new friendships. Will you help us do so?" After a pause, Hadron extended his hand. James clasped it firmly, a handshake across the void. Perhaps two crews, so long suspicious of each other, could finally build trust and understanding. Over the coming days, the Exodus crew worked side by side with Harkov's residents, making repairs and sharing skills. Laughter echoed through the station's halls, the first hopeful sound heard in long years. On the third day, a small shuttle arrived from another outpost. "We received your message of peace. What do you require?" the aliens asked. Soon more ships came, moved by the humans' generosity. Vital food and medical supplies flowed in. Malnourished children regained vigor, and optimism stirred. Though some still clung to old hatreds, fresh bonds were being forged. On the eve of their departure, James embraced Hadron. "From this day forward, we will come in friendship. Know that you will always have allies in humanity." As the Exodus flew onward, her crew felt changed. Through mercy shown to others, they had found absolution, remembering who they aspired to be. Now they traveled the stars anew, defenders of the downtrodden and judges of injustice. James watched the stars streaming by. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in years, true hope soared within him. By opening their hearts, humanity had rediscovered its noble purpose.